The other thing that is very unique, I think, to growing up on a military base is the fact that you don't have control over who your neighbors are, and it forced an integration in neighborhoods that really, even in the United States today, you don't see.
Black military brats, particularly those who are 30 and younger, have had the advantage of growing up in a fortress where it was against the law, against the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for anyone to make a racist remark or to fail to intervene when someone else makes one.
In the military, on those bases, when I was there, zero tolerance for race and racism. Didn't matter what you thought, you could not act on it. The soldiers could go out, have their little riots and do everything like that, but it better not be in the school system.
This may be one of the reasons brats, 40% of whom are minorities, routinely outscore their public school peers, why 3 times as many get college degrees.
I scored in the 97th percentile of the Scholastic Aptitude Test. It means only 3% of people in the United States did better than me that particular year.
But only his military teacher in Germany told George's parents he was college material. His civilian teachers in New Jersey didn't seem to notice.
They said I was a good student, I dressed well, it's one of these kinds of things, he might be black, but he dresses real nice.
No one's ever studied race relations amongst children of military families. We've done quite a bit of research on race relations amongst soldiers, but very little nothing as far as kids are concerned.
I'm sure on an individual basis there is prejudice, but on the whole there isn't. And I feel like when people from different backgrounds and of different races have to live together and work together on a daily basis to where they really, really get to know each other, they really understand that one group is not less capable than the other group, and some of those prejudices start to disappear.
Of course, growing up military isn't all shiny and happy.
With most of the military lifestyle, you get paid once a month, so you ate well on payday and get all the groceries, and then as it winded down, the closer you got to payday, the less you had in the cupboard to eat.
And every time you move, you have a weight limit on how much you can actually ship back and forth. And the weight limits are based on your rank. Every time you move, you have to buy new cars or buy a car. You have to buy all new kitchenware, towels, curtains, just little things that you take for granted in your house. You spend all your money on it.
From date of detachment, it's usually around 6 months or so before a couple like yourselves would get housing. Look at it as an adventure.
Many lower enlisted families are on welfare, and I think Americans would be surprised how many soldiers aren't receiving government assistance, like food stamps.
Officers' families like my own fare a little better when it comes to salaries and moving allowances. But all of us are subject to what Mary Wirch calls the Hall of Mirrors.
I learned fairly early on that anything that I did reflected directly back on my father and his career, especially his career.
If a man's children misbehave, the question is then posed, how can he have command of his troops?
I always felt that was very unfair because my father could only have so much control over me, especially in those adolescent years.
On the other hand, it's a powerful tool if one is really angry to know that if you do something, you may be able to completely sabotage your father's career. And One of the ways that children can rebel against their parents and get into trouble and yet have a built-in excuse is, oh, I was drunk. I was at a party, somebody brought a six-pack, I had too much, and I didn't really mean to run your car onto the CO's front lawn. Oops, just happened.
Because anything we do can reflect negatively on our parents, our lives are often full of rules which are strictly enforced.
When you call a person's home, you never say, "Let me talk to."
I know what fork to pick up and what fork to use and what knife to use and how to use it and how to keep my elbows off the table.
If you didn't stop at 5 o'clock when they lowered the flag, I think they would have shot you. I mean, it's out of respect, don't get me wrong, and I think it's a great tradition, but everybody stopped. I mean, it was common sense.
And I mean, if a child fails to get off his bike and just keeps on pedaling, even as retreat is being audibly played, the child is reported not to his father, but to his father's commanding officer.
In the military, I don't think that it's about what you did. I think it's about you did what I told you not to do. And maybe that's something instilled into the soldiers, but I think a lot of things were definitely blown out of proportion.
When Bill was 8, he was punished for playing with matches and lighting a small campfire.
They sit me in the corner and they say, "You're going to sit in the corner for the next year, 365 days. You will only get up to use the bathroom, go to bed, and go to school. You will eat your meals, you will do your homework, you will do everything else in the corner." So I spent a year in the corner. I had homework to do, but no comic books, no TV, no friends. And I never forgot. I never forgot that.
Rules exist in terms of discipline, in terms of chain of command, that are on the one hand dehumanizing, but they are designed so that in time of war, in time of crisis, everybody knows their job, everybody will take orders, they won't question orders when seconds can count. The problem is that that is not really the best environment for bringing up children, because the job of children is to question, and it is to make mistakes, and you don't learn that unless you experience it.
Appearances were very important in my family. We were very mindful that wherever we went, we were being observed, particularly when we lived abroad. We represented America and the military wherever we went.
My brother and I both played football. We were on kind of the B team. We weren't really people that played in games very much. My father wasn't that interested in sports, but when he did come, we would be coming from the game and he would have his camera out and make us pose in front of the other football players, which was to me extremely humiliating.
I know it's rough to leave your friends and move every year, but you are Marine kids and can chew nails while other kids are sucking cotton candy. And you're Meachams. Meacham is a thoroughbred, a winner all the way. Gets the best grades, wins the most awards, and excels in sports. Meacham never gives up.
Well, military families have really high expectations of their children. I think that's a good thing. As long as the expectations don't get too high to where they can't be achieved, then you have problems, because that lowers a person's self-esteem.
Margot tried to kill herself 4 times in high school.
It's not that I wanted to die so much, although I was kind of doing some existential angst. It was just like there was so much pressure to do well, to get good grades, to be perfect. I was in student government, I was in all the plays, I was doing everything I was supposed to do, but I was just tired of it all. I remember cutting my wrist. I remember seeing the blood go into the toilet. I remember this feeling of relief. It was never talked about after I was taken to the hospital. So basically the message I got was, better take care of yourself, because nobody else is going to take care of you. Which is the attitude you always have when you're a kid, I think, in the military anyway. You better be able to do things for yourself. You know, whether it's clean up the campsite, do this, move, never complain, rise to the occasion.
All this discipline and achievement and positive thinking does turn us into well-mannered kids when we want to be, and hellacious rebels when we don't. But it doesn't encourage self-reflection.
You have to, amidst all these rules and all of the punishments and consequences, you have to find out who you are, what you're good at, what you want to do with your life.
It's what most of us call growing up, which is a tall order for anyone under the best of circumstances. But for a brat struggling alone to cope with real tragedy, it can take a lifetime to undo the damage.
At the age of 11, I was raped on a military installation by a soldier. One of the soldiers and I were in the water and playing around, and he was with another friend of his. One of them had asked me if I wanted a drink or a candy bar, something from the vending machine. But instead of taking me to the vending machines, I was grabbed and pulled away from the pool into some brush and trees.
It took Heather 4 years to build up the courage to tell her parents.
I went through a really, really hard time and a lot of depression, and to the point where I was hospitalized. And nobody knew the real reason I was hospitalized. You didn't tell them that your daughter was hospitalized for depression because she got raped by somebody in the military on a military installation. You didn't say that. She's ill. It's like you're expected to keep these deep, dark secrets, and then you're expected to grow up and be this normal, functioning adult.
Every morning at the line you could see him arrive. He stood 5'6", about 185, about as broad at the shoulder as he was at the hip. Everybody knew he didn't give a shit, the Sky King. Now some said Sky was born in New Orleans, where he built himself a rotor on a sewing machine, cut his teeth on a collective pitch. Old Sky was a low-flying son of a bitch. Sky King, Sky King, Sky King, short fat Sky.
Oh yes, we had the white glove inspections. My dad, when he would return home, he was gone quite often, and when he would return home, the first thing he would do was inspect our rooms.
Of course my father was always right. If he was wrong, it's because we thought he was probably wrong, but he never was really wrong.
Now, I don't want you to consider me as just your commanding officer. I want you to look on me like I was, well, God.
Not all soldiers are authoritarian. My daddy took great pains to leave his work at the office. But few civilian organizations are as intimately involved in a family's personal life as the military.
Probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with in high school was the fraternization rules. And the rule was just cut and dried. Officers did not mingle with enlisted people.
The reason for this segregation is because you're talking about a group of people who have to go to war. There are people who are going to be giving orders, there are people who are going to be taking orders, and it gets confused if those people develop intense personal relationships.
Military parents aren't officially required to apply this rule to their children, and many don't. But when they do, it's tough to deal with, especially when we live so close together and are otherwise completely integrated.
There were several times when I would go to pick up somebody for a date, and invariably they say, "So, what does your dad do?" Which is just another way of saying, what's his rank? And I'd say, oh, he's a master gunnery sergeant. And we would usually go out on that date, but if I asked her out again, she would say, no, I'm not supposed to go out with you again.